sambar is a silent deer, it never calls. But when it sees a carnivore, like a tiger, wild dog or a leopard, it gives a loud call. Now that call is called an alarm call. So you are also looking for telltale signs on the road, and you're also at the same time listening to the forest. The forest is in a way telling you.
It's 6 a.m. and in the jungles of Saini at the Pench Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh's untamed wilderness, the very air seems to hum with life. These are the forests that had captured the imagination of Rudyard Kipling as he went on to create the character of Mowgli and his unforgettable band of jungle brothers. But in contrast to the portrayal of tigers as villains in the Jungle Book, the forest of Pench treats these regal felines with utmost care. With approximately 50 of them calling these woodlands home, the jungles here boast of a thriving population of the apex predator.
Tiger walks, you will have pug marks. It will scrape because tigers are territorial. So what happens is that when they are patrolling, at every few meters, depending on what type of walk the tiger is on, it will leave a scent mark, which means it will scrape on the, for instance, look at the pug mark here. Hey, rok na jara.
Driving into the dense forest in an open jeep, we are following Anish Andheria, veteran conservationist, large carnivore specialist, and president of the Wildlife Conservation Trust. Known to have spent much of his life in the wild, Anish understands tigers like few do.
So tigers are water babies, really. I mean, you seldom see them far away from perennial waters. And so they are really an indicator of the health of the forest. If the forest is degraded, you will not have perennial water bodies. As in, the streams will dry out, and therefore you won't have a high density prey, and therefore you don't have tigers.
With 75% of the world's wild tigers, India is home to the largest population of wildcats in the world. The Panthera tigris, or the Royal Bengal tiger, is native to the Indian subcontinent. Once roaming a much larger area, recent years though have witnessed a severe decline in its numbers. But one state has been trying to buck the trend. Over the last 4 years, Madhya Pradesh has witnessed a 50% jump in its tiger population. It currently holds the highest number of estimated tigers in India. We are at one of the 6 tiger reserves in the state, as we try to find out firsthand what Madhya Pradesh has been doing right to have retained its status as the tiger capital of India. With the largest forest area in the country, there are an estimated 785 tigers that roam freely in Madhya Pradesh. These numbers might appear bleak when compared to the 19th century, when close to 50,000 tigers traversed the Indian landscape. Over the years, hunting, poaching, and habitat destruction went on to decimate this population, bringing numbers down to 268 in the early 70s. Setting off alarm bells, it was around then that Project Tiger was launched, an ambitious conservation campaign. 50 years later, the numbers today stand at 3,167. Anish explains how one of the first maneuvers under Project Tiger was to create tiger reserves based on the co-buffer strategy, a critical step towards addressing man-tiger interactions.
The disturbance in the core had to be low, and around the core there will be a ring of forest from all sides, and that will be called the buffer. Mostly the core of all tiger reserves are either sanctuaries or national parks. So by law, you can't have human disturbance there. In the initial stages, people were just lifted and moved, and at that point, there was violation in human rights and all that. That's early in the 70s and 80s.
Since then, however, there has been a significant shift in the government's approach towards the indigenous communities for whom these forests had always been home. Today, the state has the largest number of locals actively engaged and employed in forest reserves dedicated to tiger conservation. Shishupal Envati is one of them. Driving us through these jungles, he belongs to the Gondh tribe from the nearby Karmajhari village, only a few kilometers from the core zone. Employed by the Forest Department since 2006, today he makes about 12,000 rupees a month.
जब से टाइगर रिजर्व बना हुआ है, ये हमारे गांव से पेंच मतलब कर्माजिरी गांव से पेंच नेशनल पार्क में हर घर का व्यक्ति जोड़ा हुआ है सर। हम दो भाई हैं मैम, दो भाई में से एक वायरलेस ऑपरेटर है मैम और मैं एक गाड़ी चलाता हूं मैम, और दोनों भाई यहीं लगे हैं मैम। दोनों को सेम पेमेंट मिलता है। जो हमारे मम्मी पापा हैं वो खेती बाड़ी का काम देख लेते हैं मैम।
Indigenous forest communities hold a deep, mystical bond with tigers. Their reverence for these majestic cats isn't just superstition, but also stems from coexistence.
जैसे बाघ का में हम बागदो बाबा बोलते हैं, तो साल में एक बार उनका हम पूजा करते हैं मैम। या जिससे मुर्गा बन गया, जिसके पास है पैसे तो मुर्गा देते हैं।
Yet, this relationship can occasionally turn hostile, especially if a tiger preys on their cattle.
गांव में उतना ना समझ थे, करंट लगाते थे मैम। जो बिजली वाला आता है ना मैम, करंट लगाते थे। कई जगह जानवर डियर सांबर के लिए लगाते थे, मगर कई जगह टाइगर आ जाता था मैम, उससे भी एक्सीडेंट हो जाते थे मैम। फांदा लगा दिए, अब पानी में एक जहर आता है मैम, ड्रिंक करके वो मिला देते थे। पहले बहुत शिकार होता था मैम। हमारा भी कुछ साल जब से मैं देख रहा हूँ, जब से मैम लगा हूँ, जब से बहुत कम इस एरिया में सुनने को मिलता है कि ऐसा हुआ। और अभी धीरे धीरे हम तो मैम रोज़ जाते हैं जंगल, ऐसा लगता है कि टाइगर बहुत बढ़ गया।
The local communities have always been dependent on the forest and its produce, from tendu leaves and mahua flowers to amla, chirunji and firewood. To keep them away from certain portions of the forest would mean cutting them off from livelihood. In the 90s, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in Madhya Pradesh ordered the formation of EDCs, or Eco Development Committees, formed at village levels near reserved forests. This was a step towards integrating locals and encouraging them to earn through wildlife conservation.
In Paints Tiger Reserve, I have 130 EDCs, and whatever tourism revenue we generate in a year, 1/3 goes to these communities. They also been employed in most of the activities which we carry out inside. So some of them are like permanent worker with us, and many of them, huge number of them, do this casually.
In the 1 year of 2016 and 2017, Madhya Pradesh earned 166 crore rupees from wildlife tourism across 4 of its tiger reserves. When Shantabai received a grant of 3,000 rupees from the Forest Department back in 1996, she opened a canteen. The 72-year-old has been a member of the EDC for the last 15 years.
उसमें अपने जो सरकारी काम आता है, पैसा आता है, बजट, तो उसमें काम कराते हैं। ललटेना खुदाई है तो मेड़ बंधान है, तो अपनी बहुत सारी काम रहती है उसमें। अपने गांव को संभालना है, पूरी समिति के अपने आदमी लोग रहते हैं, तो अपने जो काम आता है तो वो मजदूर के हाथ करवाते हैं। अभी भी थोड़ा बहुत 60-70 हज़ार है, तो अभी वो ललटेना खुदाई चालू करेंगे अभी।
During peak tourist seasons, those like Shantabai earn about 10 to 15,000 rupees monthly.
हर साल में मुर्गा देते हैं, नारियल फोड़ते हैं, उसकी पूजा करते हैं। जहाँ से चलता है तो वहाँ पत्थर रख देते, पैर रखता है वहाँ पर उसकी पूजा करते हैं। हमारी आदिवासी के देवता है वो। हाँ, और उनके पीछे हमारी रोजी रोटी भी मिल रही है। अब दुनिया बाग देखने नहीं आएंगे तो हमारा धंधा कैसा चलेगा।
Deep inside the forest, surrounded by towering trees and a meandering river, stands the lone house of Forest Officer Harpal Singh. He has been within the core zone with his wife and child since 2018, heading out for patrol, a crucial part of the ranger's job. The officer's focus currently is tracking a 7-year-old tigress, a resident roaming close to the Madhya Pradesh-Maharashtra border.
वो टाइगर बहुत बोल्ड टाइग्रेस है। वो लगभग में अभी 6 से 8 साल की हो गई है। मीटिंग भी हुई है उसकी, अभी उसके बच्चे कब से तो दिखे नहीं हैं।
For years, patrolling by forest officers and rangers was undertaken without any emphasis on analyzing the data they collected. But things look different today.
ये गश्ती के प्रकार में लिखना पड़ता है कि सामान्य कर्तव्य है कि कहीं इमरजेंसी में जा रहे हैं, तो वो सब इसमें चयनित करने का है। इसमें पूरे मेंबर जो हमारे साथ जो मेंबर रहते हैं उनका नाम लिखना पड़ता है।
Officer Singh is logging into M-Stripes, a GPS and GPRS-based tool designed to assist wildlife protection and management of protected areas. Using GIS and statistical tools, patrol track records, crime scenes, complete with geotagged photographs. This makes available a wealth of information to assist wildlife management.
This is the map of Pench Tiger Reserve, and all these staggered line which you see, these are basically the patrolling route taken by my forest guard. And if you can see this brown boundary is there, so this particular guard has covered only the southern area. So this month we're going to check why he has left this area. But here you can see this guard has covered whole of his beat for patrolling.
As Harpal Singh sets off for the core zone, Forest Officer Kapil Kumar Patel readies himself for the buffer zones. Every month, those like Kapil need to patrol areas worth 160 kilometers. Not just tracking tiger activity, they are also in charge of dispensing prompt compensation at times of any conflict. Cattle loss because of tigers in the buffer zone, for example, can cost the forest department up to 9,000 rupees.
क्योंकि फूड पेट्रोलिंग से हमको पता होता है कि हमारे टाइगर किस एरिया मूव करते हैं, और इसके साथ साथ हमको यदि पता है कि हमारा टाइगर यदि बाहर जा रहा है तो हम लोग उस पर वहाँ के लोगों को बताएंगे कि भाई आप लोग जो है यहाँ पर टाइगर आ रहा है, आप लोग इस तरफ ना आएँ, ताकि आपका कॉन्फ्लिक्ट भी ना हो और हमारे टाइगर को भी कोई हानि ना पहुँचाए। जब लोग वहाँ आएंगे नहीं तो हमारा टाइगर सेफ रहे। ऐसा हुआ है कई बार आमना सामना टाइगर से ज़्यादा डिस्टेंस नहीं होने की वजह से। जब नए नए थे तो पहली बार देखे तो बहुत डर लगा, इवन घर आके भी नींद नहीं आना कि अब क्या हो सकता था, अटैक करता था हमारा क्या होता। पर जब जैसे हम लोग धीरे धीरे कई बार आमना सामना हुआ, बहुत बार देखा हमने, और देख के हमको महसूस हो गया कि टाइगर कभी अटैक ही नहीं करता यदि आप उसके सेफ जोन में नहीं पहुंचेंगे। यदि आप उसको नहीं लगा कि आप उसके ऊपर कुछ करना चाहते हैं तब वो अटैक नहीं करेगा।
As we step out of the core zone, we are met with barriers that open up to India's largest tiger corridor. Straddling 1.4 kilometers, this was built by the Wildlife Conservation Trust to ensure that linear infrastructure like roads, rails and canals don't fragment forests.
And this was built purely because there were a lot of crossover points for tigers and other mammals in this area. And by building this underpass, what kind of ensured is that animals can now move from underneath and traffic goes from above.
Once open and undisturbed, tiger territories today are broken up by the roads almost every second kilometer, isolating tigers and making them vulnerable to localized extinction.
This is the core and this is the buffer of Pench. And you have this road which is bisecting, and this road has existed here even before the tiger reserve was formed. There was traffic jams here, and that itself was not allowing easy movement of wildlife. Tigers were also not moving. According to our WCT data, we have seen that females that lived on the other side seldom ever moved on this side. Males would cross once in a while, but largely these populations were segregated. So this is how animals, the corridors get fragmented, and once fragmentation happens, there is inbreeding on both sides. Plus, it can escalate conflict, because if animal movement stops in one side and and if the prey population on the other side goes down because there is no movement, then tigers will go and start hunting cattle. That will increase conflict. So a solution for animal movement is solving so many things.
Madhya Pradesh by itself and along its border in Maharashtra currently has 23 underpasses. And of the 32 major tiger corridors in India, 11 run through the state. In fact, we are informed that a tiger used this corridor only the day before.
Going in both directions, so there are multiple individuals. This is not just one.
The camera trapping technology through which this sighting was captured is known to have worked well for Madhya Pradesh, Anish tells us. Placed at intervals of 30 to 50 square kilometers across the state, these camera traps capture an image at the slightest sense of movement. These are then used to create UTID, or unique tiger identification cards for every big cat sighted. Stepping out to the forest, the realization slowly dawns upon us. What may appear exhilarating for us city people might be a completely different experience for those who spend months inside the forests.
जंगल के अंदर कैंप रहते हैं तो उन्हीं में रहना होता है। तो कभी कभी ऐसा भी होता है कि वहाँ पर नेटवर्क नहीं होता है किसी किसी कैंप में, लाइट भी नहीं होती है। अभी तो लाइट सुविधा हो गई है पर नेटवर्क की प्रॉब्लम अभी भी कई जगह जाती है। तो कभी बातचीत भी करना रहता है तो नहीं कर पाते हैं, पर थोड़ा आगे चल के कॉल करना पड़ता है। जहाँ नेटवर्क मिलता है पता रहता है हम लोगों को, हम लोग वहाँ जाके कॉल करते हैं। चूँकि घर से दूर होने के बाद लगभग 1 या 1.5 महीने बाद घर की याद आ ही जाती है।
So that is, I think, the biggest challenge before a park manager, to keep motivation level of his or her staff at, very high. So we try to compensate, so this year onward we have started celebrating Park Day. So we are inviting their family to celebrate at least one day and they can see where their father work. So, I mean, these are small initiatives. I think a lot need to be done.
In its remarkable 50-year journey, Project Tiger has witnessed challenges and triumphs alike. India seems to be on a path to recovering its tiger numbers, but it is a long road ahead, one that perhaps can use the state of Madhya Pradesh for much of its way.
So, tiger-worthy forest is always a forest which is biodiverse. So, it's a symbol for the health of an ecosystem. And that is why a lot of conservation effort is tiger-centric. It's not that tigers are more important than the birds or the monkeys or a termite, but tigers become a pivot around which all the conservation efforts can be focused. So if you want to protect them, you will have to protect large areas with ample of water, and if you do that, automatically you will be able to protect so many different species.
Thanks for watching Eco India. If you like the story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Scroll.in on YouTube.